nonetheless, we've seen Trump time and again, really the seventh separate country that has suffered from U.S. military force in the past year.
If I can just jump in here, I would say
Sure.
I think historically, if a U.S. military mission is successful at the outset, there can be celebration among political figures, particularly in administration that conducted it. But I think what you end up seeing is a lot of criticism over time if, after the removal of a head of state, the situation goes south. That's the situation that we saw in Iraq after the removal of Saddam Hussein. So it's important to bear that in mind, that this is not over now just because Maduro and his wife have been captured and removed from the country. There's going to be a long tail to this, and ultimately, Trump is on the hook for that because he's the one who authorized the action to remove them.
Ryan Lucas, let me stay with you. Just remind us about how this campaign really has been building up over the course of several months, since I think late August.
Well, yeah, we saw the first military action against alleged drug boats in the Caribbean in early September. And since then, they've hit more than 30, I think, boats in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific that the administration says are carrying drugs. This is part of what the administration presented this buildup initially as an effort to cut down, or essentially to stop drug trafficking into the United States. A lot of sources who I've spoken with who worked on that very issue for their career said that when it comes to stopping drug trafficking into the United States, it's kind of a fool's errand. It's not possible to do because these cartels have deep pockets, they have resources that can allow them to either wait out the military action that the U.S. was doing or to adjust. But certainly there were questions as to whether the United States was really, whether the Trump administration was focused on curbing drug trafficking or whether this was about Maduro ultimately. And I think we've perhaps gotten an answer to that question today.
Yeah. We're going to be hearing from President Trump momentarily, speaking about the extraordinary events of the past several hours, starting overnight, the U.S. Arresting and taking President Nicolas Maduro to the United States. Greg Myrie, give us the big picture here. What is this all about? It's regime change? What is the U.S. looking for? Oil dominance in the region?
Well, we saw recently as the U.S. Released its national security strategy, talking about its global intentions for this administration. Clearly, there was an emphasis placed on the Western Hemisphere, and we've seen from this administration talk about the U.S. should be dominant in this hemisphere, and also suggesting that almost by default, or even sometimes hinted at, that Russia in its region in Europe and China will be dominant. This will be the competition of big powers with those countries I've mentioned dominating the region. So you can certainly look at it in that sense. In fact, it was talked about as an extension of the Monroe Doctrine from 200 years ago, when President James Monroe talked about that there should be no interference from European powers. At that time, he was talking about shouldn't be interfering in this region. So there's clearly going to be a greater emphasis on Latin America, and this is the biggest move so far. But we've seen other moves related to that. The talk about the U.S. taking control of the Panama Canal, the tariff issue with a number of countries, very very friendly allied countries like Mexico and Argentina. So I think it should be seen in the context of a push by this administration to have greater U.S. influence over Latin America, and perhaps also related to this is the countries that Venezuela has supported or worked with, like Cuba, where it has provided a lot of cheap oil. What
operation crossed an unacceptable line, and that this was, and I'm quoting him here, another extremely dangerous precedent for the entire international community. I think the big picture here is that this operation tells us that anything is possible in the region. Cuba and Nicaragua, both loyal allies of Venezuela, are probably very worried right now, but so is Mexico. They're worried because Trump earlier today said on Fox News that this country is run by drug traffickers, and he said, quote, something is gonna have to be done in Mexico.
Franco Ordonez here in the studio. Let's speak about Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He has been quite hawkish on Venezuela and on Latin America more broadly. Put this in the context of an administration with a lot of support in South Florida, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to even, to the first administration and even before. I mean, when Marco Rubio was the senator, this, obviously for Florida and, representing from Miami, this is something that he has been pushing for years and years and years. The position on Venezuela, also Cuba, also Nicaragua. He has a very hardline position that even this summer he tweeted out that Maduro, on X, that Maduro is, quote, not the president of Venezuela and his regime is not the legitimate government. He claimed that Maduro was the head of the Cartel de los Soles, a narco-terrorist organization, according to the administration, and taken possession of the country. And as you say, he is just one of a few people in very powerful positions who are kind of driving this policy. Now, take, for example, as well, Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, also from the, kind of from the Florida area and kind of part of this Florida contingent in the administration. And then you can even go back even farther to the first Trump administration, where this was a big goal of the United States and a big goal of President Trump was to depose Maduro then. As Hader said earlier, supporting Juan Guaido, who was the opposition leader at the time. This is something that, in some of the experts I speak to, they call this a bit of unfinished business. But it is certainly, the South Florida ties that Trump has certainly are playing an influence here politically.
And President Trump has posted moments ago on Truth Social a photo of the Venezuelan president, and you see him in a gray tracksuit with handcuffs on and messy hair. This happened in the middle of the night. We should go to you again, Greg Myrie, because I'm curious what you're thinking about this massive U.S. military buildup off the coast of Venezuela. Could we expect even further military action after the remarkable events of capturing the president?
Well, the presence is there, and Trump has said they could take more action if needed. I think it will run into some very tough questions if Venezuela stays relatively calm, but perhaps politically does not do what the Trump administration would like to see. Would the U.S. consider sending in additional force? Generally speaking, the size of this force, which is a dozen or more ships, 15,000 troops throughout the region, both at sea and on land, you don't want to keep them there indefinitely on a heightened state of alert. And then just issues like refueling and keeping these systems going, these troops ready to go, is you can't sort of do that indefinitely. So they'll sort of have to make a decision about whether they're going to use additional troops to do something with them in Venezuela, or perhaps pull back. And again, a lot of this, because of the size of the ships involved, the U.S. force involved, will be able to have some sense of what they're thinking. At the moment, it looks like, okay, this was a one-off operation, and hopefully this could be sorted out diplomatically or politically and not without additional force. Certainly no guarantee of that. You just don't know how various forces, the Army, armed groups, or others may respond. So, yeah, the force is there, but we don't know what move they might make next.
And Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has tweeted some criticism of U.S. attacks. She writes, Americans' disgust with our own government's never-ending military aggression and support of foreign wars is justified because we're forced to pay for it, and both parties, Republicans and Democrats, always keep the Washington military machine funded and going. And she writes, this is what many in MAGA thought they voted to end. Boy, we were wrong. Franco Ordonez, your view of what the supporters of President Trump and in MAGA world, how are they going to view this moment?
Yeah, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene is certainly one of those supporters who's, come a little bit in conflict with the president, but certainly a representative of a lot of views in the MAGA world who are concerned that Trump has strayed from kind of his America First priorities. This comment is just the latest in concerns about Trump's, increased focus on foreign affairs and not enough, in their opinion, on domestic affairs. Trump, in addition to kind of concerns about where this is going to leave Venezuela and the future of Venezuela, there really is a question among his supporters about how they're going to feel about these aggressive actions. I mean, Trump came to power, with an agenda focused on America First and putting Americans ahead of other countries, the interests of other countries. So for this, international focus in this term,